This is Sally B Explains Chemistry. And what I want to do is teach you how to make a face mask that is also talkable. First, you need to start with a piece of fabric. So this is going to be the outside of the mask. What I do is I cut a strip of fabric that's 200 millimeters long. And then what I do is I rip it all the way down so I can make several masks at once. Now that I have my strip, in order to cut a 200 by 200 millimeter square, all I need to do is fold the fabric down on the diagonal, cut, and then when you open it up, you're going to have a square piece that would be 200 millimeters by 200 millimeters. What you're going to do is take a contrasting piece. So in this diagram, I have a red piece to show you nice contrast in making this mask. And I cut a second piece that's 200 millimeters by 200 millimeters. Now I actually cut it a little bit bigger so that you can see it in the diagrams. Now I take my elastic cording. I like the cording, but you can buy quarter, I guess it's an eighth of an inch stretchy elastic. I like the softer feel for this, but I'm going to cut 200 millimeter long pieces, and I need two of them, one for each ear loop. Then what I like to do to catch them on the inside to make it look nice when you're all done with the mask and give it a secure hold is I take the top of the mask and I put one on the diagonal to the right and then one on the diagonal to the left. And then what I do is I lay the piece of fabric on top of it, putting right sides together. And this way, when I sew, I will catch those pieces of elastic in place. And those are going to be the top piece of the ear loops. Now I'm ready to sew. So I have it ready. I go over to my sewing machine and I lay it down. So the top of the mask is to the right. And I use my presser foot as a guide. And I use a Viking sewing machine, so everything is done in metric units. And what I'm going to do is from the center of the seam to the outside of the presser foot, that is about 7.5 to 7 millimeters in length. And I just sew along until I get to the other side, which you can see I'm going to catch that other piece of elastic there. Then what I do is I turn it and I'm going to go all the way down the one side of the mask. But before I get to the end, I'm going to reach in, grab the ear loop, and pull it down, as you can see, into this diagram and hold it into place. Now, I don't use pins when I sew because they just get in the way, and I can hold everything down with my fingers. So I pinch it down and then I sew over the top of it. Then I turn it, and now I'm going to go all the way across the bottom of the mask until I get almost to the other side. But I have to remember to reach in, grab the other ear loop, pull it to that corner, and sew it in place. Then I can go up the other side. So this is the last side of the mask that needs to be sewn. But I need to turn the mask inside out so the right side goes to the outside. So I go up about halfway, but you're going to stop. I'm going to lift it, and then I'm going to go up a little bit further and then finish off that last corner. And what I have now, as you can see in here, is seams all the way around the mask, but I have an open channel there. I use aluminum nose clips. You can buy two different kinds. One's on a sticky pad, and you can see it in the diagram here. You just peel it off and you stick it, so it's going to stick there for the time being, right smack in the center, close to the very top. When you're all done, you're going to fit this right to your nose. Then what I do is I reach on the inside and I'm going to pull the good side out, pushing that nose clip gently through. And then what I do is I tug on those elastic ear loops and I make those corners pop out. And you can see where the arrow is, That's the opening I just turned it in. And what I'm going to have to do is fold that under and create a nice seam later in the process. Here's the view from the contrasting side. Now what I'm going to do is turn on my hot iron and be very careful of that elastic cording because you don't want to hit it with your hot iron. So I take my fingers and I lift it up as I press. And so now I'm just going to press this nice and flat. Now that it's nice and flat, I am going to go to the top where I have that nose clip, and I'm going to sew a 10mm seam across the top of the mask. But you have to make sure you're careful you do not hit that aluminum nose clip or you'll break your needle. And so my sewing machine allows me to move the needle from the center to the left, creating that 10mm seam using my presser foot again as a guide. Once I've got that seam, you can see it in this contrast. That's my 10mm seam at the top. I cut a piece of aluminum metal. Now I bought some flat metal and I'll put it in the video here of where I purchased it. Or when I first started making masks, what I did was I took some garden wire that I happened to have because it was very hard to find supplies. And I cut it and I bent back the ends and pinched them in so that they didn't poke through the mask. And so you can use either type of metal, but I do prefer the aluminum metal if you can get it. Now this diagram here shows you that I've just pressed open the seams there, and I'm going to create a channel in here to insert that aluminum piece in just a moment. Now what I do is I go to the center of the mask. You can see the top is on the left and the bottom is to the right. And I'm just going to go straight across, sewing and creating one side of the channel. Then once I get that side down, I'm going to repeat it. But you see how I move my needle to the right side this time? And I'm using my presser foot as a guide again. So this is going to create a 10mm seam from the other seam when I'm all done. And then I have a nice channel. And you can see it on the contrasting side that I just made a channel across the center. Then what I do is I insert my aluminum piece of metal and I push it all the way in, and then I center it. And then what I do is I sew some little channel locks on both sides of the aluminum piece. And then I go to the top, and that nose clip that I have, it was stuck with some sticky tape on the inside, but after you wash it a couple of times, it does move around. So what I do is I lock it into place. Now I flipped it over, and what I do is I just pull from the top of the mask down and I create my first pleat. Then I take out my hot iron and I press it. Then I pull down a second pleat and I press it. Then I pull down the final pleat and I press it. And you notice that I've gone from the top of the mask to the bottom of the mask so that my pleats face downwards. And if you have it this way, nothing will get caught up in your mask during the day. I press it one more time with a hot iron. Again, do not hit the elastic cording with the hot iron. And then I just put it right back on the sewing machine. I move my needle to the right, creating a 3mm seam along the side here, using again my presser foot as a guide. And I sew all the way from the top to the bottom. Then I turn it around and I go back. So I double stitch it on both sides. And then you flip it over. I'm just going to show you what it looks like on the back. And then the final piece is to sew a 3mm seam along the bottom of the mask, and then go back and tuck a little pleat in and tuck that one down, sewing that into place. So when you're all done, it looks like a rectangle with a little pleat on the bottom. And I flip it over and you can see what I have here. And now what I want to do is show you how to fit it to your face. And so here is a video of me teaching you how to put it on. We just made the mask. As you can see, this is the top, and you've got your little panel sewn in here for the nose. To fit the mask to your body, you go ahead and you put it on. Then you want to pull this down underneath so that you've got a really nice fit under your chin. Pull it up, and then you're going to pinch this down right here. This is that metal piece there. And then in the middle, you've got your other piece of metal that you can pinch out like that. So it pinches out right here. And now I can sit here and talk freely, and it's not going to suck back into my mouth. Now I can put my glasses on. As you can see, they're not going to fog up because this is tightly against my nose with that nose piece that I put in here. Or you can put on your goggles. So I buy the really nice ones. These are the stealth ones, and these look really, really nice, and they fit really, really well with the mask under here like this. And I can breathe so easily with that piece placed right here that doesn't pull this back into my mouth. So hopefully you've got some ideas. You might need to adjust the lengths of these depending on your face. Again, I start with 200 millimeter by 200 millimeter, and then it's pinched up down in here. But what I really like about this design is the nose bridge. And again, you can use one of these flat things that have a sticky side to them, and you stick it on the inside and flip it around. Or you could just use common wire. It's really up to you. I prefer these if you can get them, and I'll try to put some links for where I bought some of the stuff. So if you have any questions, just leave some comments for me and I'll try to explain them. But remember, when you're making a mask, no matter what you do, you have to evolve and change. If you find a better way to do something, then try it. Now in this mask, I have one channel. Another mask, I might put a channel on the top and a channel on the bottom and pinch it out even more. But that one channel really does bellow this out and makes it a really nice mask. I find that I wear a mask when I look stylish. I'll wear a mask when it's breathable. And I always wear a mask. I have lots of different types all around my house. And I gotta tell you, this one fits me the best. The other types, you know, the type that comes around like this and it's one piece and it's not pleated, other people prefer those. But because I talk so much, I like the pleating that goes with me, and then it gives me a good fit for the whole time. This is washable, and what I do is I make 5 of them for the 5 days of the week. I can take them all, make sure you wash them. I can wash them in the washer, but then I hang dry them. One other piece of advice I want to give is if you use the metal, okay, so and you'll see in earlier, I ironed the pleats in. I don't have this type of wire in there. I had this type of wire in there. And so if you iron this metal with the polymer, the plastic around it, this will melt. And I hate to tell you, but that's from experience. So don't iron this because low melting polymers will melt with an iron. Talk to you later.